Hi guys, welcome grade 11 Mindsetters, and this is going to be a fantastic show. Kathy?
I wonder if they can see this.
I wonder if they can. This is just my lunch, guys. I hope you guys don't mind me eating while we're doing the live show. Is that okay? Fantastic. Guys, today we're going to be chatting about the skeleton, and Kathy's going to tell you more about that now. But get chatting to us on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget, it's www.facebook.com/learnextra, and that's XTRA. Guys, I know we're having a few problems with the events because the events aren't showing up, but what I have done is that I have created an event and I've called it Learn Extra Live. Post your questions here. It's ingenious. So guys, do exactly that. Post all of your questions in there because I'm sure that there are going to be quite a few, and hopefully I don't pass out during this session. Kathy, what are we going to be talking about?
Okay, I'm going to leave Indiana with her bones. Okay.
But
so
first we're going to go to an ad break.
And please, I mean, she's chucked these bones, so...
They look delicious.
We'll see you in a minute when we get back. We're going to be on the I'm just going to give you a breakdown, and yeah, we're ready to rock and roll.
Fantastic. See you after the break. Welcome back, grade 11s. Fantastic. We're going to have such an exciting show. We have bones all over the studio. And I think before we even start, guys, get chatting to us, ask us questions, and Kathy is waving because she can't wait to start the show. So Kathy, straight over to you.
Listen, I've been watching her face with those bones there, so this is wonderful. It's very funny. Okay, people, we went through the different types of skeletons. We went through a hydrostatic skeleton, which was made of water. Remember? Water, liquid, all in the coulomb, which is an internal cavity in a little soft, mushy organism. Okay, like a worm, like an earthworm. Okay, then we went to an exoskeleton, which was the head, the thorax, and the nice mushy abdomen. But the head and the thorax form part of the exoskeleton. You'd also have your crustaceans, your crabs, those kind of creatures where they have hard outer skeletons to protect the soft inner working parts and the organs. And then we went on to the endoskeleton. And with an endoskeleton, we spoke about the human skeleton, which is basically the whole intro into the human skeleton. So I've got Giles here today. He's a really miserable looking little man. The problem is that we've taken all his muscle off him as well. But before we get to Gilesy, darling, we are now going to go through the different types of bones that you get. Now, we start off with the long bone. Now, the word would tell you that it is long. Now, all you have to do, people, use your common sense, okay? Think in your heads what a long bone would be. Now, if you just take your hand and feel your body, where's the longest bone in your body? It is the femur. And you know why it's called the femur? Because only females have really beautiful long bones. That's why guys always look at girls' legs. It's the femur that gives a girl her nice long legs. All right, so a long bone would be a femur, but also this bone, which is the humerus. These are our long bones, and the reason they are long is because they are able to make our bone marrow, and that's the main job of the femur, to make bone marrow. When people have bone marrow transplants, it's the bone marrow that's taken from there. Why? Because that's where red blood cells are made. All right, and your white blood cells, the white marrow and the red marrow, and that's why we've got long bones here. We've actually got an ox's long bone, which is going to be yummy, yummy, yummy when we start doing that.
Smells delicious, Kathy.
I'm sure, hey?
Smells amazing.
Okay, then we have the long bones. Then we have flat bones. Now, I mean, really, let's think, where on our body do we have flat bones? Well, what about the shoulder blades? They're flat bones. That's a beautiful example of a flat bone. All right? And then we have irregular bones. And our last little one that we have, let me just move this up a touch, is our short bones. Now, it honestly isn't that hard to figure out. Long bones are long, okay? Flat bones are flat. Whoa, I mean, this is really hard life science. Irregular bones, I don't know, now let's think. Where would we have an irregular bone? Maybe this spiny thing at the back of our backs? How's that for an irregular bone? Yeah, this spinal cord. And another example, short bone. Now, oh, that's a hard one. I mean, all I have to do is look down at my feet and my little toes and my little fingers. Those are your phalanges, and we're going to go through all of that when we do the skeleton. But these are our short bones. The difference between them is that the long bone has got a whole bunch of compact bone and spongy bone. So it's got layers upon layers of compact bone around spongy bone. And it's got heads or epiphysis and a shaft, which is a diaphysis, which we're going to go through in detail. Then we've got our flat bones. Well, that's 2 layers of compact bone over spongy bone. And then we've got irregular bones. Well, 1 layer of each. And we've got our short bones, also 1 layer of each. But if those are your types of bones, and let me tell you something now. If I was your teacher or your examiner, I would give you a diagram of the long bone. Why? Because it relates to the making of blood. Okay? It's the spongy bone that makes the blood. Now, I told you last week, the next time you have a chicken, okay, and your mom, or you, whether it's from Kentucky or wherever, or your mom cooks a chicken, take that drumstick, which is the femur, okay, and whether it's a male or female chicken, and you take your femur and have a look at it. And you can actually chew through a well-cooked chicken, especially if it's sort of like done in a pot and sort of roasted and mushy with all kinds of veggies and stuff. If you have a look there, you can actually squish it. That's the head or the epiphysis, and that's where your red bone marrow is. And red bone marrow makes red bone cells. And remember, the life cycle of a red blood cell is 121 days. What is their job? To carry oxygen all the way around our bodies. And if we have too little iron, we cannot make our red blood cells. Why? Because they contain hemoglobin. And the hemoglobin is the oxygen taxi. Now, some of what I've just told you should be ringing bells madly from grade 10, and most of it is what you need to know for this year. All right, now we're going to have a look at our bones.
I'm so excited we're looking at the bones. I want to know what you're just talking on. It's just a question from Corsa, which I know he says, where are the red or the white blood cells manufactured in the long bones?
When we have a look at Indy's bones, which are lying on the desk right next to
not my bones, the bones that are sitting next to me.
Awesome. You see, what we actually did is we cut her leg off, and we've sort of like dissected it, and that's why she's sitting.
These are my legs.
Have you seen her move?
No. They definitely are my legs.
You're going to have us, you'll have the police around here just start catching us.
Guys, don't worry, I'm okay.
Okay, people, these are not real bones. They are ox bones. It's an ox's femur. Not that that's an attractive thing, though. Okay, but all right, we've got Mornay, who is our roving cameraman. And Mornay, I want to invite you in, darling, to come and join Indy and I. So let's have a look here.
Okay.
No, we're going to do dissections as well.
This is the first time that we are actually having kind of like a live dissection. So this is all new to me. Fine for Kathy, because she was telling me stories before the show about all these dissections.
Wait till we do an eyeball for the grade 12s.
I'll probably pass out. She's very white.
Yeah, we'll have to have a little bucket here for her.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you're going to have to. Okay,
all right,
let's
people,
do these bones.
Let's do these bones. Okay, I'm going to ask Indy to hold my whiteboard pen.
Got it?
Mornay, come in, hun. Come in, come in, come in. Alrighty, here we go. You see, Mornay's our roving camera. If you can just turn to, I don't know which camera, that one, so that everyone can see you and all the kids can see you in action. Okay, there's our roving cameraman. Okay, people, what we've got is, if you look at this, I'm going to turn this bone over. Okay. All right, this would be the femur. Now, if you look at this little part here, it sticks out and around. This little piece that sticks out and around here is the ball that fits into the socket of the hip. Okay, so this is because we're going to do joints next week. So we've got the ball of the femur. All right, now we're going to, if you look at this, you've got a wide part here and a wide part here, and that is the epiphysis, or the head, the epiphysis. And then you've got the shaft here, which is the longer part here, which is called the diaphysis. It would depend on what your teacher wants. But the head and the shaft, or the epiphysis and the diaphysis.
Cool. So if any of you guys have any questions on the bones so far, please send them through to Facebook or Twitter. I will be sending a few through some photos, close-ups, as well onto Facebook and Twitter, just so you can see. I think you can. Well, now they're seeing this amazing.
Okay, wait, we're getting there.
Hope you've got hand wipes. That's all I'm saying, Kathy.
I didn't think of that. Okay. All right, people, just have a look here. There you've got this nice little round blob, which is the same as this one here. Okay. But what we've done is we've cut it in half. Our wonderful butcher has cut this in half so that you can see what's going on in here. Now, if we look here, you can see this is all, let me put the pen here, this is all rock hard. Okay, it is as hard as nails. And then you'll see that there's a slightly redder part all the way in here. Come on, come in close, close, close. There we go. You see there? All around there. And that's the perimesteum, and in there is where you're going to find your blood vessels, and the nerves are in there. Okay, so when people break their bones and they have like a hairline fracture, and you think, oh, for heaven's sake, it's a hairline fracture, and a person is wobbling around and they are in excruciating pain and no one can understand it because it's a hairline fracture, it's because this part has now been broken into and the nerves are exposed. All right, people, so we've got the compact bone, which makes up the shaft, and then, and you'll see it better here, let me take it like this. All right, if you have a look here. There is your shaft, okay, or the diaphysis, and there's the compact bone. Indy, can you see?
I can.
Okay,
let me get it nice and close.
In fact, let's just do this.
Let's just wipe it clean. We'll just wipe it clean.
We need a tissue. Okay, you wipe it clean. There's your compact bone, and it's really hard. I mean, I'm scratching here with this pen, and it does nothing. And then the perimesteum is in here, and that's where your blood vessels and your nerves will be all the way around there. But now look here. In the shaft, the compact bone, which is really hard, is very thick. Okay, it's about half a centimeter, or it's almost a centimeter thick here. Whereas if you look around here, it's thin. It's thin. Why? Because its job here is not so much to protect. Why? Because it fits into either the knee, all right, joint, or into the hip. But what we've got here, and I'm sorry I don't have I'm going to try and do it with my nail.
Oh, you're going to break your lovely nails.
Hey, listen.
Oh, no.
This is sorbet.
I'll be upset.
Sorbet the wedge. Okay, but it's not really working. But if I could have, I would have shown you that you can actually peel this back. And this part here is cartilage. And the reason the cartilage is there is because it makes sure that there's no grinding of the bones when they're sitting in either the knee joint or the hip joint. Very clever. And very often you'll hear people had a hip replacement. And a hip replacement is actually just replacing this part of the hip. In other words, where the bone starts to grind, because the cartilage isn't there anymore, they almost put like a plastic cap around it.
I've had a friend that's had that surgery before.
And it is very sore, because you must remember, right inside the compact bone, which is so thin over here, that's where you're going to find all the nerves.
It's a lot of athletes and things.
Yes, it's from working those joints so much, okay, and putting so much stress on them, because very often, and this, people, is something that's really important.
Yeah.
Indeed, very often, athletes, when they get hurt, will carry on, and their coaches will say to them, "Fussbait, just bite back that pain. Be a man."
Well, you know what it's like in school. Like,
listen,
come on, you've got another meeting.
I've got a son who plays rugby. Okay, and he has played with injuries that I shudder, but the coach is, come on, you have to be a man. Just suck it up, just suck it up. And then you end up with knee replacements and things like that when you, and hip replacements when you get older.
She's my age and she's had both her knees replaced.
Well,
She's a hockey player, so I don't know.
But again, but you'd find hockey players would have a lot of injuries on their ankles, really, but their knees because they're twisting, and you have to stop, especially on the Astra. Okay, now people, this is very important. If you have a look, and I'm really battling, let's see.
What are you trying to do? You're trying to get
I
some,
want to show them that this here, but it's got some blood that's come in from the perimesteum here, but this is your yellow marrow. This is your yellow bone marrow, okay? And this here is your red bone marrow. And it's here that your red blood cells are made. All right, so very important, this here, red blood, and your yellow bone marrow. If we look at this one, there's your red bone marrow and your yellow bone marrow. All right, so it doesn't really look yellow, but
no, but you can definitely see the difference.
Definitely different, and this is where the red blood cells are made.
No, you can definitely see.
So, whoa.
You know what, Kathy, would you like to take a break? Maybe we should make it. Here's your Wacom pen. No, I'm just joking.
No, I can't write with that at the moment. Okay, people, I think let's take a 2-minute ad break, which gives me just enough time to go and quickly wash these hands of mine.
Fantastic. Right. We'll see you then. Bye. Hi guys, and welcome back. I know you all enjoyed that as much as we did, maybe a bit more than I did. No, I'm lying, it was very good. Thanks, Kathy. We do have a few questions. Mindsetters, thank you so much for interacting with us on the Facebook page and the Twitter page. We are loving it. Just in case you didn't get it the first time, it's www.facebook.com/learnextra. I have to be so careful that I don't keep saying it over and over and over again. Okay, guys, we've got a few questions. Kathy, before we get to our guest that is in studio, let's get to a few questions. Shepard just wants to know, so are all the bones capable of making red blood cells, or is it only the long bones?
Shepard, when I started today, this is what I mean when I say you must listen carefully, darlings. Okay, long bones are the only bones in the body where you are going to make red blood cells. Okay, why? Because they're the only bones that have that red bone marrow. Right, so just remember that. Long bones, red bone marrow, and if you look at this diagram here for a sec, and I would like my producer to actually come in just onto this diagram here and not have me in the picture. Have a look here. If we have this, there's your long bone. These are the labels you must know. You must know that you've got a thin layer of compact bone around here and a nice thick layer of compact bone down the shaft, which I've shown you. You must know that the perimesteum is just this compact bone covering, so it's between the marrow and the compact bone, and that is where you're going to find your red blood, at least your blood vessels and your nerves. Okay, that's why it hurts. Then you've got your cartilage around here, which helps with the rotating of the ball and socket joint, epiphysis, or the head, and you have your epiphysis at the bottom, or your head. This is for the ball, this is for, and why is it moving? This is for your ball and socket joint. This is where your knee will fit in, or it slots into your knee. Okay? The diaphysis, or the shaft, which has a really thick layer of compact bone. And then your yellow marrow is in the shaft, and your spongy bone is where your red marrow is, and that is in the epiphysis, or the head. Okay, people, please learn that, because it's important and you need to know it, because that's your site for the production of red blood cells. Without red blood cells, you are dead. And that is why somebody who has been diagnosed with leukemia, which means that there are too few red blood cells, not that there are too many white, there are too few red, there's a problem with producing the red. So what do? They then do a bone marrow transplant. And can they take bone marrow from anywhere? No, they have to take it from somebody who is genetically very similar to this person. And we're going to be doing meiosis and genetics with the grade 12s. Genetics, I think we start next week with genetics. Please, just for the grade 11s and the 10s, just tune in and just sit and watch for the first 15 minutes, because it will make so much more sense with what we've been doing with the cell and with meiosis and mitosis, etc., etc. Okay, it just starts to, so you understand what the end goal is, and that's what you're going to have to know for matric. All right, so please make sure that you know this diagram. Okay.
And Kathy,
Yes.
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
But Claudia wants to know, what is the difference between, or the function between the yellow and the red bone, the bone marrow?
The red bone marrow produces red blood cells, and the white bone marrow, what do you think it produces? Or the yellow bone marrow produces the white blood cells. Okay, so you have to remember that, people, is incredibly important. Also, something else, just something for you to know, is that your red blood cells are the only cells in your body that do not have a nucleus. And if they do not have a nucleus, can they undergo mitosis or meiosis? No. And that is why if the red bone marrow isn't doing its job, we have a huge problem, because we cannot make those red blood cells anywhere else. Okay.
Fantastic.
Any other questions?
That's it for now. Let's get straight into our friend.
All right, let's just see here. Just something else I wanted to show you. This is a color picture, and I hope you can, even here on the screen, it's not very clear, but here you've got the spongy bone, okay, and the yellow marrow, and you've got your red bone marrow in there. And yeah, you know what, we're going to, I think what we do, Indy, can we put this onto the onto the...
Of course. What I'll do is I'll get somebody to send it through, and I'll put it onto the Facebook page in the next 15 minutes or so. Will that work?
Perfect, because then they'll be able to see the red bone marrow, what it actually looks like, and then the actual cells that are there to make the red blood cells. Perfect. Alrighty, people, and we are going so nicely at the moment. You will also recall that we spoke about bone tissue, and I showed this to you. We went through the Haversian canal, which is the central canal, and in the Haversian canal we have our blood vessels as well. This flows through the bone tissue. That's our arteries and the little veins, and we arterioles and the venules, and we have our nerves. Okay, so in the case of the long bone, do you remember we said in the perimystium that's where the blood supply would be, the blood vessels? Now that's going to branch and break up into little arterioles and venules in between the bone tissue, and that's what would come up here into our Haversian canals. Okay, the caniculi, what they do is they little tiny channels, and those tiny little channels link our lacunae, which is the cavity. Okay, and these little cavities are what we've got that are colored in here that look like the little spider bodies. And you know what? If you have to write spider body on your textbook or in your diagram, I mean, if you own the textbook, write in it. Okay, it's a good thing to write in your textbook. You make notes for yourself. It's your textbook. If it's the school's textbook, it's a different story. Okay, but make little notes for yourself. Do the diagram on a piece of paper and keep all of those with your notes. And you write there, lacuna, it's a cavity, so that you remember. And these little spider thingies, okay, the little cavity. And then inside, we have our osteocyte. Osteo means bone, or to do with bone, and cyte means cell. So little structure, little cell. So your osteocyte, and if we have osteoporosis, what's that? The little cells here die, and we end up with a spongy bone. Alrighty, now I'm actually very, very, very excited, because we are now going to go on to our little skeleton, and I'm not even going to worry about this.
Our guest.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that. Okay.
Yeah, he seems a bit bored. He's just been kind of standing there.
Yeah. Okay, Monet, our roving cameraman. I mean, I feel very, very like elite today. Hey? We've got our own special cameraman.
We do.
I mean, yeesh. All right, people. We have our Giles. Okay.
Giles. Is that his name for today? Yeah.
Look
No,
at these
Giles
shoulders.
is good.
I mean,
Giles is good.
Giles is not a rugby player.
No.
Okay. But Giles is still a darling and probably is very good at computers.
And has a really good sense of humor.
Wonderful sense of humor.
Yeah.
Okay. And Giles just hasn't grown a bit. He's just sort of grown tall, not... Okay. Anyway, here's Giles. Now, you've got to remember that the whole skeleton is divided into two parts. Okay. Morne, we have this, okay, which is the skull, and we have the spinal cord with the chest cavity, okay. This forms our axial skeleton, okay. The head, there, and this, and the spinal cord. That's our axial skeleton. Then we have, you know, when they put in a textbook an appendix, and it's sort of like the extra parts, okay? So we have the axial skeleton, and then we have the appendicular skeleton. It's the appendix. It's what's added on is the arms and the legs, okay? So you've got the pelvis and the legs, and you've got the shoulders and the arms. So what do we call this? So we have our appendicular skeleton, and this is our pelvic girdle with arms. I mean, our pectoral girdle with arms. And the guys will tell you that, especially the Jimmy, muscular, sporty guys will talk about their pecs. Okay, and their pecs sort of are the muscles that go across here. And sometimes DJ Fresh the other day, I was driving in my car, and he was saying that he could flex his pecs, and he was doing it, and Poppy in the studio nearly had a heart attack. Okay, so some guys can make their pecs flex, but this is your pectoral girdle and your pelvic girdle. All right, so two skeletons. So if you give us a minute, Morne, let me quickly just write this for our learners. Okay, we have our skeleton, the human skeleton, which is an internal skeleton. Okay, it's internal, it's inside the body. Okay, and it's divided into two parts. We have the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. All right. Axial skeleton is made up of the skull, okay, and the spinal cord, or the vertebra that make up, not the spinal cord, the vertebra, okay, which makes up the spine. Okay, now, appendicular is got two parts. We've got the pelvic girdle and arms, and legs, the pelvis, and on this side we have the pectoral girdle and arms. And just remember that DJ Fresh flexes his pecs. And if you know a guy that can do it, only guys that spend a lot of time in a gym can actually flex those pecs. Okay, so we go back to our little chappy. Should we just maybe get a blank page here? Oh, that's cartilage. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll leave the cartilage on here. So we've at least just got black behind us. Okay, here we go. All right, Giles. Let's put this here. Okay, this whole thing, sorry, Giles, this whole thing is called a skull. Okay, and you have the skull and crossbones, and that they used to use on the days of the pirates to scare everyone. But what this is, it's divided into basic bone structures. Now you've got sutures, which are joints of the bones on top of the skull. Okay, this is called the cranium. So we have the cranium, then the zygomorphic bones here, which make up the facial bones, and then we have the upper jaw and the lower jaw. And the lower jaw is what talks. That's why we are able to move our mouths. The upper jaw doesn't move. It's just the lower jaw. And the lower jaw is attached in here. All right? And the fact that it's attached in there, we can sometimes, sometimes a person gets a big whack on the jaw, or like in boxing or in rugby, and you get a big whack and they say your jaw is dislocated. And literally, it does that. And this little structure here comes out of its gap in there, or its little process that's in there. So this is what we have, and this is why we are able to chew. In both the jaws, we have sort of cavities, and through those cavities is where we're going to have our teeth. Now, Mornay, if you have a look, just if you can zoom in over here, this is the nasal cavity. And what you feel at the end of your nose, okay, so if we can just go to other camera, this thing here that can move around, this is made of hyaline cartilage and it's nice and soft. All right, this gives us our shape and it's based on our genetics. And this part here is what's actually made of the bone. So if somebody, for example, gets a real bad whack here, this bone can actually shift into the brain and it can actually kill the person. So we want to avoid that. Now, if we look at this skull, what is its job? Because it's part of the axial skull, or axial skeleton, what is its job? It's to protect the brain that sits inside here. So we have the cranium, the facial bones, and the lower jaw. And that makes up the skull. Right. Now, why is it here? It's to protect the brain, which is the soft tissue. What else does it protect? It protects the eyes. Okay, so it protects the eyes. And those orbits here, the eye fits into here. Now, if you can actually, Mornay, go right in, and if the learners can see right in the back here, hang on, there we go. There's like a hole there, and that is where the optic nerve is going to go into the brain, and you have what's called an optic chiasma, which happens across the middle of the brain, so that what you see with your left eye is perceived by the right side of your brain, or sorry, your left eye, the right side of your brain, the right eye, the left side of the brain. Okay, but it goes in the back over here. And then clearly you have points of attachment all around the skull for your muscles to move your face so that you actually have facial movements. Now you'll notice that when people have had too much Botox, they are incapable of moving the facial muscles. Why? Because Botox paralyzes the muscles. And although that makes the wrinkles straight, it means that the person is incapable of actually showing anything special in their faces. All right, Giles, mwah, you have
Kathy,
to go onto the ground.
Don't put Giles away yet. You know how much I love Giles. I want to speak to him.
Well, would you like to keep him there with you?
Well, what I would like to know is the cranial bone.
Yes.
Is the cranial bone a type of irregular bone?
It's an irregular bone.
Is it?
And you have your sutures that are all around here as well. Now, something else, just while we're talking about that, is you'll notice that with newborn babies, in fact, until a baby's about a year old, if you touch the middle of their head over here, okay, here, there's a hole. Okay, well, Giles has got a hole because it goes onto the pen. But there's a hole here, there's like a cavity, and that's because these bones actually knit across as the baby comes through the pelvis. So as that baby comes through the mother's pelvis over here, the bones of the brain actually overlock. The baby comes out, the bones go back to where they're supposed to be, and we then end up with this nice, soft, mushy place in the middle here. And slowly the bones grow together. All right, happy Indiana.
Thank you. I completely understand
now. Do you want
now.
Giles's?
Can I?
Yeah, let him sit there with you.
I want to see this cranial bone.
All right, now we go on to the spinal cord. People, the spinal cord, the spinal bones. Very important. Why? Because we have our spinal cord that passes down the center of this thing. Okay? In between these irregular bones, we have, and Mona, if you can come in here, you can actually notice these dark places, and then you've got white, and then there's dark and white. What we have there, this is cartilage. And what the cartilage does is it acts as a shock absorber for all the things that we do. But they allow ever so slight movement so that we can actually move forwards or backwards, okay, with our spine and our hips. All right? Now, if we look at our back, I mean, I can do this. All right? And mind you, if a person is a swimmer, for example, when they're doing fly, that's exactly what they're doing. They've got this sort of ripple effect that moves around. Now, we're still dealing with the axial skeleton. We have 33 vertebrae. They are irregular bones. They have cartilage in between. The very first bone, this absolutely first bone here, is called atlas. Now, you're going to ask, why atlas? Come on, Indiana, you're a really lousy interactive pupil here.
I'm so sorry. I'm so
be
busy talking to Chris Bafana and Takalani and Devan.
You lie, man. You're busy playing with Giles. I can
okay,
see you.
okay. I'm interested. Ask me a question.
Okay, why do you think this bone is called atlas?
Sheesh. Because it's round like the
No.
world?
Okay, Atlas was a Greek god, and it's part of Greek mythology. And what Atlas did was, he carried the earth, the whole world,
Oh, well, that was a trick question.
on
now.
his shoulder. Okay, so what does the Atlas carry here? It carries the skeleton, the skull. So the skull fits on here. So your very first bone, and you must know this, people, is called the Atlas. The next one, the second bone, is called the axis. Why? Because you can turn your head around. You can go up and down, you can go sideways, and the reason for that is the axis. Axis, it can turn on its axis. Atlas makes sure that that skull is perfectly in place, all right? So, we've got 7 cervical vertebrae. Cervical, part of the neck, all right? So this would be your cervical vertebra. It's your neck. So when people have an accident, generally they have whiplash. And they say, oh, you've damaged your C1, your C2, well, never your C1, because that's your atlas, and your axis, you're in big trouble. Probably you're going to end up being paralyzed if you damage these badly. But you've got your C3, your C4, and you say, oh, you walk around with one of those things around your neck to lift your back, at least your head off your neck and remove the pressure. All right, so cervical vertebra, that's when the doctors refer to C. All right, your C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 cervical vertebrae. Then, now, if you look here at the back, here we start with the clavicle and the scapula. These are your shoulder blades, but we're going to get to that. Then you go all the way down here, and where the ribs are is your thoracic vertebra. Then we have our lumbar vertebra. Now, you've heard about people getting a lumbar punch. And a lumbar punch is when they stick a big, fat mother of a needle into your spine to draw cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebro from the brain, spinal, in the spinal column. So your cerebrospinal fluid is going to come here from your lumbar vertebra. Why? Because the gaps here are the biggest, and the needles can actually fit in there. It is, if I tell you pain, take any kind of toothache you've ever had, multiply it by 1,000,000, and that's basically
And then
what
put it
the
in your
pain-
back.
And then, yeah.
And then put the pain in your back.
Yes, yes. Put it all into your bag in one specific little spot, and that's what you have. Then this is your sacrum. It's your bottom. It's your backside area here.
Some
and
people say
then
when you land on your coccyx, like you never want to land on your coccyx.
the chances of you landing on your coccyx are very, very minor. Actually, what happens is you land on your tail end here. So you end up with your coccyx sort of being forced back a little bit, but your coccyx is just 4 little bones on the end here. It's like what's left over from a tail.
Yeah.
Okay,
A little
if we had a
tail.
tail and we could wag it, it would be the coccyx. All right, but there's the sacrum, and the sacrum's as solid as they come. All right, why? Because what attaches to the sacrum, people, is if we look at our pelvic girdle, it's our hip bones. And this is our pelvis, and it attaches to the sacrum. So the sacrum must be solid. If there's any movement here, whoa, you're going to end up with disjointed hips, and you're not going to be able to walk properly. All right, so.
And then Kathy, Joseph has a really interesting question. Joseph wants to know, which part of the skeletons are concerned with both protection and movement? I mean, I can only assume that it would be...
Protection and movement would be the head, would be the skull.
Would it
Why?
be the ribs?
You have to, no, because you have to move the head to see danger, but it protects the brain. Your rib cage is able to move, it has to, because people, look here, when you inhale, your rib cage lifts. When you exhale, your rib cage comes down. All right, these are your costal bones. And the muscles in between the costal bones are what causes your rib cage to move up and down. And we'll do that when we do respiration. All right, very important. And also, this sternum, by the way, just while I'm at it, the sternum is made of cartilage, but it is your breastbone. And this little end piece here, the teachers used to love asking, and they still do, is the xiphoid process, this little thing here. And that, if you stick your finger here, you can actually wiggle it. All right, it's made of cartilage.
So, Kathy, it's made out of cartilage. We had a question earlier saying, what are the different types of cartilage? Like, I didn't even realize.
No, we're going to do different types of cartilage next week.
Okay,
guys. I need to get through this. We're doing cartilage and joints next week.
Okay, fantastic.
All right, so let's just do this. So we've got the cartilage here that joins the breastbone to the ribs. Now, we've got 7 pairs of true ribs, okay? And we have... then we've got a couple. Now, if you look at the true ribs, they're your 7 pairs of true ribs. And then we've got 4 floating ribs. Why? Because their cartilage actually attaches to rib number 7. And so they're your at least your false ribs. And then you have your 2 little ribs dangling here at the back. And they are your false ribs. Okay, I mean your floating ribs. What am I doing? True ribs, floating ribs, false. They're false ribs. Why? Because they don't attach to anything. But they are there to just give protection from the back around your digestive system. Because all the way in here, where your rib cage is, you are going to have a diaphragm which separates them. So you wanted to know what moves? This moves. Okay, but it protects as well. Your hips, during childbirth, they move, people. Your hips will move. Well, clearly, if you're a female, because if you were a male, you wouldn't be giving birth to kids. But there you've got a sort of a cartilage process here that actually opens to allow the birth canal open so that the baby can be pushed through. All right. Now, pectoral girdle. What do we have? We have the clavicle, right, which is your collarbone and hurts like anything when you break it. Then we have our flat bone at the back here, which is the scapula. And we have a ball and socket joint, which I'm going to do with you again when we do ball and socket joints, but this is one of them. And the humerus. Now, humerus, because you have your funny bone on the corner here. Now, if you bash your funny bone, you know when you bash the corner here and you think, it's so sore. Well, I don't know why they call it the funny bone, because no one laughs. Okay, but it's so funny bone, and you have the humerus. It's funny, humerus here. Then you have then you have a hinge joint, because it can only move in one direction. Now, the way to remember these bones, and this is what I'm trying to teach you, is you have the thumb here, all right? So there's the thumb here. And this is the radius, because the thumb can rotate. So the thumb can rotate, the radius is always on the thumb side. And what is underneath here is the ulna. All right, so I'm going to show you on my arm. There's my thumb can rotate. There's the radius bone, and the ulna is underneath. And under starts with a U, and ulna starts with a U. So you never confuse those two. All right. Then, in the hand, we have, okay, let's palm up, all right? We have these bones, those bones, and then we have the fingers. So these bones that make up the wrist are called the carpals. Then you have the metacarpals because they're in the middle. Remember, meta always means middle. So the metacarpals, so carpals, metacarpals, and your phalanges are your fingers. And guess what? Your toes are also called phalanges. Your hands, we have the carpals and the metacarpals. If we look at the foot, oi, you're going to have to get down here, Morne. In the foot, we have the tarsals with a t. Why? T for toe. So tarsals, the metatarsals, and the phalanges, which make the toes. All right? We almost, I have to finish off now, but okay, let's have a look here. The pelvic girdle, pelvis attaches to the sacrum. All right? Sacrum is solid so that this pelvis has something really good to bond onto. All right? Now, ball and socket joint, the same with this humerus. We're going to have the same ball and socket joint here at the hip. And here at the knee, because the knee is so sensitive and so, we've got to protect it, it's got this little thing here called the patella. And the patella is made up of cartilage, and that fits here to protect this hole because your nerves pass through here. That is why it hurts so much when people injure, especially in soccer, when they injure their knees. And that patella, which is the kneecap, moves. Those guys want to go through the roof, literally. All right, now.
Do nerves different sensitivity?
Sorry?
Do nerves different sensitivity? This is a question from Shepherd.
Nerves?
Yeah. So when, I suppose when you hit a nerve?
No. Nerves are nerves, okay? Clearly, if you get something in your eye, even though it's the area for sight and your sense for sight, the cornea and the outer layers of the cornea are going to, and the conjunctiva, have nerves there. And those nerves are pain receptors. So your pain receptors are what's going to cause the issue. All right, people, let me quickly finish this. So we've got the kneecap, also a gliding joint. It can only move in one direction. And then, look here. There's the big toe. And in line with the big toe, which is a phalange, remember we've got the tarsals and metatarsals in the middle of the foot. And then this bone. Now, how to tell the difference between these two bones, the same as with the forearm, is this one goes to the big toe, okay, and this one here goes to the side. So we've got the femur, and I have gone absolutely, come, help me here.
I can't see. What is that? Well, while we're at it, let's see. There you go. Do I have my own camera yet? Guys?
The tibia and the fibula. I remembered.
Go.
You see, please, you've got to learn this. It's when you get old like me, you forget. So the radius is on the wider one. It's on the thumb side. The ulna is on the bottom side. It's under. And here we have the tibia is in line with the toe. And the fibula sits, it's a thin bone on the side here. And this is where you get shin splints. It's between the muscle that is between these. So tibia in line with the toe and the fibula on the side. Okay. And there we go. And shoo, I actually got through it. So people, I hope you now know the skeleton. All right, learn it. Make sure you know that line diagram. Indy, over to you.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, it's the end of the show. I've renamed this little guy Duduzela, like exactly how I said I would. Dudu, I'm naming the skeleton after you. He's asked us so kindly. So next time when we bring him in, Dudu, this one's for you. Guys, grade 11s, thank you so much. Grade 12s, you're on next. Please don't leave those seats. And don't forget tomorrow's maths literacy as well. Grade 11s, thank you. Grade 12s, see you now. Bye, grade 11s.